Good evening once again, delegates. I'm Sudha, and I'll be your host for the Changemakers Conclave. I welcome all of you once again. Uh, I run a small club at Kochi. It's called MUNsters Club, and we are hosting this event at Kerala Startup Mission on February 7. The timings of the event would be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's going to be a full day event filled with a lot of conversations, brainstorming, collaboration, and networking with each one of you. Hope I am audible. Hi, good evening, Agnes. Thank you for joining in. So, there are almost 23 institutions who have registered for this event, out of which very few have joined for the session right now. We're recording this session, and you will have access to if you want to share it to other colleagues also who have not joined in with you. Okay. The the motive of Changemakers Conclave 2025 is to address the agenda reimagining education with emotional literacy. And since we are focusing on a UN simulation, we would address this agenda under the committee UNESCO. That is, we'll be following the mandate and the rules and procedures and programs mentioned by UNESCO and address this agenda under the UNESCO committee. I'll share a lot more about this in this session and the next session also. For this committee, we have two moderators. The chairperson of the committee are Shibli and Dr. Abshad. They are psychologists and psychiatrists. They are experts in their fields. And Shibli is also used to be a model UN enthusiast and a manner during her college days. She's also going to bring in her experience, and both of them are definitely going to bring in their expertise in the field and their knowledge. Yet, as we have already mentioned in our brochure and the content that has been shared to you on the website, this is a participant driven event, and we are looking forward to active participation from each one of you. And you would also have experts around you to guide you through wherever we feel we need assistance. Right. So both Shibli and Abshad are going to be a great resource for each one of us in organizing and conducting this whole event. We also have our partners, Empathy University, Rasha, who would join in throughout the session. She is an empathy and well-being advocate, enthusiast, and she takes workshops and sessions around empathy. She would be one of the key speakers and also active participant throughout to guide us with all the constraints or challenges that we would be facing to address the issue. The event ecosystem partners is Kerala Startup Mission. This is the first time Kerala Startup Mission would be hosting an event for educators that too around an agenda around education and specifically emotional literacy. So we are really excited to see how it goes at Kerala Startup Mission, where focus is mostly around technology and AI, which is definitely very important. But we look forward to having both go hand in hand. Okay. Uh, a little bit about MUNsters Club, what we do before I take forward to why are we doing Changemakers Conclave 2025. So MUNsters Club is a very small club of students, of middle and high school students, where we focus around real world skills, which is mostly around addressing the global issues by taking the roles of world leaders, just like we do at United Nations. So Model United Nations is generally a simulation of UN, where students take up the role of world leaders and they discuss global issues, they research around them, they act like world leaders, and they find possible solutions to existing problems. And that's why I call the club MUNsters Club, because we use Model United Nations framework for all our skill-based activities and programs and sessions. So as I said, Model UN programs are actually supported and endorsed by United Nations. And we would be following exactly, we would be following the rules and procedures of Model United Nations in our conclave also. Having said that, it is not going to be as complicated and as competitive as it is in Model UN conferences, which is more of simulations. In fact, we are looking forward to follow the framework of Model United Nations. Yes, yet not do it in the form of a simulation, but rather do it in the form of a more impactful and a real session. That is, the solutions that you would be drafting would not be to just present and vote or win an event, but would be something that could be taken forward to your institutions where it can be implemented and tested and seen if we can really tackle the challenges and the agenda that we are talking about. So yes, our conversations would be in the form of Model United Nations, which I'll explain in this session and the next session. So Changemakers Conclave 2025 would be a forum. As I said, we would be focusing the Model United Nations format. All the participants will be the delegates. You will be representing your own organizations as your own role. So you are founders, entrepreneurs, psychologists, counselors, freelancers, educators, even managers, HR managers. So you'll be playing exactly your role. You'll be giving speeches. You'll be deliberating on critical issues at hand. That is, you'll be doing long discussions around the various sub-agendas. You'll be negotiating and finding common grounds on the perspectives where you don't agree to. You'll be all sitting together and drafting solutions, which we call as resolutions at Model United Nations. You'll be passing resolutions with consensus. So once we sit down and draft our solutions, we'll be presenting our solutions and we'll be voting. We'll do Q&As and we'll be voting on our resolutions. We'll ensure that we merge all the solutions that each group would have drafted, and we'll merge them, and we'll ensure that you carry it forward to your institutions or to the wider community. So in a crisp, all I can say that this is all that we are going to do from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You'll be giving speeches, you'll be deliberating on critical issues after giving speeches, you'll be negotiating on all the perspectives you don't agree to, you'll be drafting resolutions, and we'll be passing resolutions. So that's Model United Nations. That means Model United Nations are not the forum that we are talking about. The way of conversations in Model United Nations is not speaker series or workshops. You are not told what to do. Rather, we take up the role of problem solvers and we find ways to solve the problems we face. So you won't just give speeches, you will be playing the role of influencers. So your talks, your conversation should be more around influencing people with your ideas and perspective. You won't just write solutions, you'd be resolving problems that we are going to encounter. Just a minute. Yeah. Okay. When it comes to listening to other speeches, it is not just about listening, it's also about understanding their perspectives and finding solutions together. We don't. If you can just mute yourself, I'm not able to mute you. Yeah. So it's not just about just debates. There are no debates at Model UN conferences or the events that we are hosting. We will not argue. We would rather understand each other's perspective and negotiate and find ways to find common grounds to resolve our problems together. And as most of you are leaders, we won't just lead, we would collaborate to solve the problems together. And at the end of the event, it is not about winning and finding or passing a resolution. It's about leaving an impact and carrying over the solutions that we have found and carry our learnings forward. Right. So this would be more of an open forum for all of you to have conversations, create a safe space for each one of us, and ensure that we all work collaboratively rather than pointing out problems with each others, maybe with different parts of the community. We would rather prefer more collaboration than blames or complaints, because you won't be the observers or the listeners, you would be the problem solvers in this session. Right. So I would now take you forward, take you through with what is the procedure of this whole event and how are we going to, how have we organized all these sessions from debate to action in this conference. The first part of our Model United Nations framework is always being aware of what we are going to talk about. That means we expect you to be not just observers during the committee session, during the conclave, but be active participants. For that, we would want you to do a basic reading and a basic research around what we are going to talk about. For that, we have already shared the background study guide to each one of you. Hope you would have already read through. If you haven't, please give a basic read to what we are looking forward to. So so we have divided the research into 5 parts. That doesn't mean you need to do a very wide reading, but it is also about having a basic understanding of where are we sitting, what are we going to talk about, what are the challenges around the topic, what are the existing policies and programs around the agenda, and what are the solutions now that we're looking forward to. So we expect each one of you to do a basic reading before you join the conference so that you're more aware and you can share your ideas and research based on your research more effectively during the committee to make it a success, right? So what are the 5 kinds of researches that you can do? Committee specific research, which is understanding what is UNESCO and what UNESCO does. Because when we talk about emotional intelligence and emotional literacy, UNESCO plays a major role. UNESCO has been at forefront in designing the policies and programs around emotional intelligence, social and emotional learning, global education, global citizens education program. There are a lot of such programs that UNESCO has designed. Now, as we all know, UNESCO is not an individual country's organization, but it's a UN organization. That means countries around the world have participated together in in creating such frameworks and policies and programs. And that also means that something that every country is bound to implement in their countries, in their cities, in their schools, right? So it is very important to first understand what has UNESCO said about emotional intelligence, emotional literacy. What are the policies and programs that UNESCO recommends to be implemented in our school? Just a basic understanding would do. The second understanding that you must have is around the agenda. Reimagining education with emotional literacy. What is emotional literacy? What is emotions? What are the different concepts around emotions? So we are talking about 5 concepts which has been mentioned in the study guide also, which is self-awareness, self-control, motivation, empathy, and social skills. We are talking about how can we ensure that our education system involves education around these 5 concepts. That our education teaches children to be self-aware, teaches children to self-control, teaches children to motivate themselves, teaches children or the wider community to have empathy, and teaches children to have social skills beyond what we are already teaching in our academic curriculum. And also along with our curriculum, can we make emotional intelligence and emotional literacy a part of our existing curriculum and our classrooms? That's what the agenda want to address to. So the agenda is wide. That means it's when we talk about emotional literacy, it talks about all the 5 concepts. If that can be made a very embedded part that can be embedded very comfortably and easily into our education system. is what we are going to talk about at the conclave. So it is nice to have a little understanding about what is self-awareness, what is self-control, what do we mean by motivation, what do we understand by empathy, and why social skills are really more important than IQ. So we are also looking at the agenda in terms of IQ. When in the world, when we give a lot of importance to IQ, can we give equal importance to EQ? Right. Okay. The third part of the basic reading, basic understanding that you should do is what are the existing challenges that we are facing in our system? What are the existing challenges that we are facing in our system, in our community, due to the lack of emotional literacy? That's something that each one of us must know because that's what we want to address at the conclave. What are the existing policies and programs that exist that we should be aware of? So there are social and emotional learning programs, which is very actively implemented at IB schools and some of the CBSE schools also, but not very actively implemented in all the educational institutions. So there are existing policies and programs which talks about emotional literacy and emotional intelligence, but we need to actually understand where are we finding the challenges in implementing them. So even if the policies and programs exist as designed by UNESCO and even by our uh, own education system, our own country's education system, what is the challenge? Is it only for the books or is it only for once a while to be taught or taken as a workshop? What are the challenges that we are facing in making it an integral part of our education system? And the most important reading or research that you should have done before you joining is solution-oriented research. What are some ideas and thoughts, perspectives, and solutions that you have that you can bring in to the committee to make it more effective? So when we look forward to possible solutions, when you are doing your solution-oriented research or reading, when you're brainstorming, I would rather suggest you to break down the agenda into smaller topics. That is, rather than finding a one generic solution to emotional literacy, it is nice to break it down into smaller topics, right? So where is the problem that we are finding around students, the problems that we are finding around education or educator, problems we are finding around the community, parents and wider community, the problems that we are facing around education system, the problems that we are facing around curriculum development. So if I divide this problem into 5 different areas, I can find solutions to each area separately. So that's how we look for solutions, right? So that means we need to look for the first challenges that we are facing with student well-being. What are the challenges with student well-being? For example, expression, stereotypes, uh, lack of awareness, lack of understanding, lack of self-control. With parents, lack of awareness, definitely. With teachers, lack of teacher training, or including emotional intelligence included in the teacher training programs, or curriculum development, lesser focus on emotional intelligence. So if those are the challenges that you have found out, then what are the possible solutions that you can suggest, which could be either you come up with expanding the strength of the existing policies, or you can fix the weaknesses of the existing policies and programs, or you can come up with completely new solutions altogether. So you can think from 3 different perspectives when you are brainstorming solutions. These are just suggestions. You can always uh, think, you can go wild and think as much as you want, brainstorm from different sources, but this is just a suggestion of how you can start off if you're totally new to thinking of solutions to the problem that we are facing, uh, uh, that each one of us has to address together. I'm sure all of you are already aware about the challenges that we have in the community, and I hope we all have our own perspectives and solutions. But it's also about bringing all of you together and seeing if we can all share our perspective each other and find better solutions when we work together. Right? So that's what you would need to research, a basic reading that you would need to do before you participate in an event. Right? So it should be around having a basic understanding of UNESCO, having a basic understanding around the agenda, what is emotional intelligence and its 5 concepts, 5 areas, having a basic understanding about the existing challenges that we have around implementing or bringing in emotional intelligence into our community, 4, focusing on the existing policies and programs, why they work, how much are they working, why they don't work, and coming up with possible solutions by breaking down the problem into several areas and finding solutions for each specific area. You can focus on any one of the areas also. You can focus on 2 or 3 areas also. But when we all come together, we'll definitely have solutions for all the areas or all the sub-agendas of the main topic that we are talking about. So you can do your research and reading as much as possible. Sky is the limit, right? So this is the basic understanding we expect from each one of you to have before you join in during the committee. At least you should have read the background study guide to have, to be aware about all that we are going to talk about during the during the conclave. Once you have done your research, you are into the conclave, you are into the committee sessions. During the committee sessions, after the basic opening ceremony, which is welcoming all the delegates and having a small discussion with the panel, which will have our chairperson and Rasha Empathy University, and maybe 1 or 2 more key speakers who have contributed and worked a lot in the education and emotional intelligence sector who are yet to confirm. After the small panel discussion with them, who will share a lot of their perspectives and work that they are doing, will open up, will make it far more easier and broader for us to think and resolve. It would be after the panel discussion is over, it would be over, the floor would be given, the floor will be taken over by all the delegates who are participating. So it would be on you to present your opening speeches, which would be mostly focused around your perspectives and your possible solutions. So you would have 2 minutes in the first session, which would begin from 10 to 11:30. In our first session, we would be listening to each one of you. We're looking forward to maximum of 2 minutes of speeches by each speaker. There is no compulsion for everybody to speak, yet we would encourage all of you to share your thoughts formally. Right. So again, there is no compulsion for all of you to participate in the speeches or not. You can choose to be an observer, but we are looking forward to each one of you as active participants. So first part is giving your speeches, presenting your speeches. Once we are done with the speeches of everybody who wants to speak, we move forward, we'll move on to the second session, which would focus on the sub-agendas and the subtopic of the main agenda, which, as I mentioned, it could be around student well-being. Then we could have discussion around teacher well-being. We should have discussion around educational system. We should have discussion about parent and community awareness. And then we should also have discussions around curriculum development, right? So this is what I see as major subtopics which need further discussion rather than just speeches. So once you have given a general perspective in your opening speeches, you would have 1 minute to share your perspective around every sub-agenda. And which should be mostly solution oriented. What is your solution around student well-being? What is your solution around teacher well-being? What is your solution around education system? What is your solution and perspective around curriculum development and parent and wider community awareness? Once we have done shared our speeches, once we have given our speeches, once we have done formal discussions around all the sub-agendas that the committee wants to decide, these are just 5 that I am suggesting. Delegates are welcome to bring in more subtopics that they see more urgent and important to be discussed. The floor will be for the delegates to decide on what are the topics that they want to further discuss. What I said right now is my suggestions to guide you, but it's the delegates who will be taking forward the session in their own way. So you can choose major subtopics that you want to have discussion on. Okay. Once we do give our speeches and once we do formal discussions around several subtopics, then we would all sit down in groups. It's called blocks. In Model UNF language, it's called blocks. You'll be sitting down in smaller groups in informal meetings where you can sit down with anybody you like to, with whom your perspectives match, or if your ideas match, you can sit down with them. You'll be sitting down in blocks and you'll be focusing on writing down all the possible solutions that we can find about everything that we have discussed so far. Right. So maybe a block can decide, let's focus on student well-being. Another block can take over teacher well-being. Another block can take over about education system and curriculum development. One block can think around how can we ensure parent and community awareness and workshops and programs for them to make it inclusive and implementable from all the areas where we are facing the challenges. So it would be informal meetings once we are done with all the discussions. So we would be actually done with all our discussions before the lunch itself. So we are looking forward to have all our brainstorming and speaking part in the first part of the day, and drafting resolutions and presentations in the second part of the day after lunch. So I hope you have a better idea of what are we going to speak about. In our next session tomorrow, I'll also elaborate on how to prepare your speeches, how to ensure that you have all that you want to say within 2 minutes. So I can guide you with the framework that we follow in preparing our Model UN speeches. So that will also help you to make your speech crisp and to the point, yet impactful, right? When we sit down in blocks, there would be a lot of times where you would not agree with the perspective of other delegates or other block members or maybe other blocks. We would rather encourage you to listen over speaking when it comes to disagreements. In such cases, we would encourage you to ask, what do they want? What are their perspectives? Ask, what do you want? And then find out, what do you both want? It is nice to find common grounds, understand perspectives, and avoid all kinds of arguments to make this collaborative event a success. So during the informal meetings, you have enough space and time to talk to each other as informally as possible, yet maintaining the respect and disagreements and understanding each other's perspective. This is also a forum for each one of us to learn to negotiate and see if we can really come up with, common grounds on many of the disagreements which each one of us might have during the discussions. The last part of our sessions would be drafting solution, as I said. So once you have given your opening speeches, once you have done formal discussions around several sub-agendas or subtopics, you'll be sitting down in blocks and drafting resolution. I'll also share how a draft resolution looks like, and we'll also be throughout in the blocks to help you with the format and writing part. You won't need to worry about worry about the perfection of the format or writing it. We'll take care of the writing part. Your task is all about sharing your perspectives and solutions and coming up with creative ideas. We'll take care of all the tasks that you're not comfortable with. We'll help you there. Right. So when you are sitting in the blocks to draft your resolutions, we want you to focus on these things. Find possible solutions. We all know the challenges, we already have the complaints, but at this conclave, we don't have the space to complain, but rather we are creating an environment to solve all the complaints that we have. So you would be forced to fix the weaknesses that you complain about, expand the strength of the existing programs, come up with new and creative programs, and we try to build better systems by drafting resolutions. This is our first attempt, and I really look forward to how it would go around. We are not right now very clear about what are the challenges that we are going to face while drafting resolution, but I'm really positive and I'm looking forward to, because the institutions that have registered for this event, and the kind of delegates who are coming in, I'm really positive and um, really excited to see and hear from each one of you, because we really have a very good group of delegates joining in for this session. So for me, it would be a enriching session, because I'm going to interact and hear from each one of you, listen from you, learn from you. And for each one of you, it would also be a great experience to hear each other and understand perspectives of different organizations and different people, if we haven't got any opportunity before so far. All right, so that's what we do in the draft resolutions. We'll help you throughout in a writing part. Please do not worry about writing that I don't know how to draft a resolution. That everything else will be taken care of by us. Once we have drafted the resolution, the most interesting phase is the action. That is, presentations of each block's draft resolution. So once you have worked in your groups and you have named your resolution and you're focused on a specific area, any two members from each group will be presenting their draft resolutions, and rest of the block members will clarify all the clauses and the solutions that each block is presenting. So once the presentations are done, there will be a Q&A session. So Q&A session is it's very interesting and exciting, where every block clarifies every question that may come up. So it's also about our questioning skills. It's also about our answering skills and facing our fears. So if there are questions that we don't know how to answer, we learn how to do it. So in our next session, I'll also share some ways in which we answer to the questions that we don't know, and how we respond to the questions that may sometimes seem offending or sometimes are difficult to answer or challenging. So Q&A sessions are definitely always very, very fun and adventurous. So I really look forward to the Q&A session, the action phase of our conference. Once we have presented our draft resolutions and we are done with the Q&A, the last part is to merge all the draft resolutions that every block has created, and we share our vote on the draft resolution. So we're looking forward to achieving, creating the draft resolution and passing it with consensus, which means everybody's agreement. If any delegate in the committee do not agree to that draft resolution, we can sit down with them, understand their perspectives, and resolve by talking. Right? We are looking forward to passing a draft resolution, a complete draft resolution, a merger of all the blocks with consensus. That is, with everybody's agreement. With that, we end the Changemakers Conclave. And the last part of the Changemakers Conclave would definitely be rewards and recognition. Though the idea of this conclave is not to have any competition among yourself, but it is very, very important to reward and recognize all the delegates who actively contributed to finding some real good solutions to the committee. Hence, we'll definitely give diplomacy awards to the most active and most contributing delegates. We'll also give honorable mentions, and there will be participation certificates for all the delegates who are joining in the committee. So now rewards are important and interesting because that is a recognition of the time and contribution that you're giving, that you're doing to this conclave. Hence, we have added the reward. But throughout the committee sessions, we will not carry it on as a competition for each one of you. And everybody would get equal opportunities throughout to speak, to share their perspectives, and work collaboratively throughout until we find the solutions. Right. So since the session is just the whole conclave is just a 1 day session, we'll definitely have everything timed. We'll have lesser time to give our speeches. We'll have lesser time to share our perspective on every sub agenda, but we have more time on sitting down in informal meetings and finding solutions together. So that's how the Changemakers Conclave has been designed, and that's how Model United Nations framework work. This has been already shared with you, but I'll share once again. Though the session starts at 9 a.m. with the opening ceremony, our registrations will be open at 8:30 a.m. That means all those who have already registered, you can collect your delegate kit, your ID cards, your placards before you join in inside the hall. So we would be there with your delegate kit and all your with your delegate kit from 8:30 onwards. We'll be there at 8 a.m. in fact. So we request each one of you to start joining in by 8:30 a.m. We prefer to start exactly at 9 a.m. because our session is all our sessions are timed and we have to work within the time allotted to us. Hence, your active research is very, very important to make it successful and impactful. The first opening ceremony, 9 to 10 a.m., will have a small welcome and then half an hour, almost 30 minutes to 45 minutes of panel discussions with the speakers that we have. After the break, we'll start our first session, which would be your opening speeches and discussions. The second session would also have formal discussions on all the sub-agendas and maybe one informal meeting where you can make your blocks and sit down and start talking about it. After the lunch break, we'll completely focus on draft resolutions. And once we have drafted our resolution by around 3:30 p.m., last session would be action, which is presentation of draft resolutions, Q&As, and passing with voting. The last half an hour, we'll organize our reward and recognition ceremony. That's how the whole event has been planned. In between the lunch break, we also have a small walk through the Fab Academy of Kerala Startup Mission, which is an AI 3D and AI training academy, which gives workshops. So you'll also get to experience what Kerala Startup does and the facilities and the infrastructure of Kerala Startup Mission, which will also be covered in the 1 hour break. So you have half an hour of lunch break and half an hour of exploring Kerala Startup Mission. So that's how Changemakers Conclave event would be throughout. Few instructions that we have already shared in the background study guide, but I would still like to focus on is we would expect all of you, I know you would be, but still as a part of sharing the general instructions, all the participants are requested to maintain decorum and respect towards all the attendees. We would not expect any one of you to have any personal attacks on any part of the community or any part of the job or discussions around particular cases or particular situations specifically. And we would rather expect all of you to avoid all blames and focus on collaboratively solving the problem. The dress code during the conference is expected to be formal, so you can either prefer formal Western business attire or formal Indian attire. So for women, it can be sari and or suit. For men, it would be suit, full suit, shoes. The language, we're keeping it open for all of you to, it can be either English and Malayalam in our conversations, in our speeches, but in our draft resolution, we'll focus on drafting it in English for the ease of drafting it and ease of circulating it for all the institutions. Hence, if you're preparing your speeches, you're welcome to give your speeches in Malayalam or in English. Only the writing part will be done in English, right? So that's some instructions. Some actions that we would prefer to be avoided during any conversation is any negative judgments. Discussions centered around should be centered around solutions and no blames. We would expect each one of you to not interrupt any speaker while they are on the mic and speaking. It is always nice to wait for the speaker to finish before you share your perspectives. And if you have anything to even to have rational debates, we would expect you to wait the other speaker to finish before you speak. We would also expect all of you to stick to the agenda of emotional literacy and not deviate from emotional literacy to maybe something else or other part of the educations or other agendas in the community, which could be important but not during this committee session. We would also expect all of you to avoid all digital distractions. So if you can avoid any other official conversations during the committee, would be really helpful to have your active attention and participation during the committee. Although this has been mentioned in the background study guide, I thought I'll mention that once again today. Right. So that's all for today's session. I haven't taken 1.5 hours. I thought it would go for 1.5 hours. Yeah, that's all for today. Tomorrow's session would be mostly focused around how to prepare your speeches, how to prepare for the formal discussions on several sub-agendas, what is the draft resolution and how to draft resolution, how to prepare for Q&A sessions, and how to face questions. So I think that will help you prepare and come more confidently for this conclave. If you have any questions, you can now ask. Yeah. If you don't have any questions, the group is open for any questions and conversations. So if you still find any difficulty in preparing for this event or doing some reading and you're stuck anywhere, you can always share that question on the group. It's an open forum. And I'm really looking forward to a very open space where everybody can speak up and create a safe place for everybody else also during the conference. Right. So that's all for today. See you tomorrow at same time, and I'll take you through the second part of the preparations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Agnes. Thank you. Bye.